basically, we just wanted to hear from you, like, a little bit about your story, what has brought you here today to be talking with us, and just if you can state your name as well.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm a physician. My name is Dr. Greg Robinson. I was trained in the 70s and did family practice and home-based care for about a decade in the Hamilton area. During that time, I did in-home palliative care and related work around the end of life. Served on committees that dealt with issues around palliative care. So I've had experience delivering care directly to people in the home and in an institution at the end of life. I, as well, lost my partner in the 1980s from AIDS and left practice at that time because I knew I was going to have to make a transition in his care to another profession. And I actually didn't change professions but went into public health. So I went back and retrained at that time, nursed him through to the end, and that's part of my story as well, which was that he had a very painful ending. And I, subsequent to that, had to as well help my father, assist my father when he was dying, because he was also in palliative care and went for a considerable period of time and woke up very uncomfortable and very shaken that he was still with us when there was no medical reason he should have been. So I have a couple personal experiences, but I also have a decade of direct care with clients, to know what that's like in the home and to know what palliative care can do and what it's unable to do.
Well, my mother, who died in 2009, had suffered multiple strokes, mini strokes, for a period over 4 years. And so on February the 9th, 2009, she was readmitted to the hospital and had about her 8th or 10th stroke. And that final stroke rendered her incapable of swallowing. So she had no gag reflex at all when they tested. The hospital recommended that we do this process called terminal dehydration, which I had never heard of before. And the process, they made sound like it was quite comforting to the family and to the patient, and it's where they would withdraw all fluids and food. So she would not be tube fed, and the process would be, they said, the palliative care people came down and said, it's normally a 2-day process. She slips into a coma, and then they would, of course, administer morphine and possibly scalpolamine, which is a medication they use to drive the secretions of saliva. And it's quite comforting and peaceful. That's not what happened. My mother it was a process that lasted 10 agonizing days. She had not had any food for a period of 3 weeks. She was taken off IV fluids 10 days prior to her death. And again, palliative care came down, so they had never seen anybody who hadn't died in a 2-day period. So 10 agonizing days where the family would do mouth care. She was in a coma, but they said that she was brain dead after a day. They checked her pupils, and yet her belly was distended, full of urine, and they took a catheter, and when they sort of tried to get the urine out of her body, she moaned, and I was questioning how that's possible if you're brain dead too. She clearly was feeling some discomfort. If you're brain dead, how could you feel discomfort? So, and she had breathing apnea where she would breathe in for 10 seconds and then nothing for another 30 seconds. So I was doing a 9-to-5 shift, caring for her, playing music, touching her, massaging her, talking to her, singing to her, talking to her. And then there would be these episodes where you just watch her stop breathing and you think, oh my God, is that the last breath? This went on for 10 days and nights. We did family care for 10 days and nights shifts, and on the 10th day, they turned her, and she passed.
My name is Stephen Fletcher. I am 41. I'm a member of Parliament for Charleston St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley, and West Winnipeg riding. So one morning while driving to work, I hit a moose with my car. So a moose is probably the worst thing you can hit with a car, because you take out the legs and the bulk of the animal will come through the windshield, and it took a long time for the people to actually find me. And a very long story short, I was brought to the hospital and in short order told that I was a quadriplegic, paralyzed completely from the neck down forever, and that I'm laying up. If I do live, it'll probably be in some sort of institution.
So I've had AIDS now for almost 30 years. I lost my partner in the 80s to AIDS. He finally left us and required a lot of morphine at the end. I had to use injectable morphine because the morphine would just drip out of his mouth. He couldn't swallow any longer. So I've known for a long time that I had AIDS. But in addition to that, because I've had AIDS and a number of issues that are related to that, so I've had various AIDS-related diseases, I've developed complications from the chemotherapies that have been used. So my liver now has cirrhosis, not from hepatitis, only because I took a drug called DDI, which put a clot in my liver and scarred my liver up forever. So in about the year 2001 or 2, I bled from internally and was lucky to survive. 90% of people who bleed like this usually don't survive. And they wanted to do a transplant immediately, which was not available in Canada because they weren't giving people with HIV transplants. A hemophiliac, James Krepner, and myself fought for that right, and we finally now have liver transplants available for people with HIV. But at that point, I was in desperate need. Subsequent to that, I've had a number of therapies tried, and more recently I infuse heparin every morning to keep my blood thinned and to get rid of the clot in the liver. It will not correct the liver problem, but it will prevent me from having to have a transplant right now. And so I still deal with the fact that my liver can kick out at any point in time, and it's terminal. It would be a terminal disease, unless I chose to go for transplantation, which if I was as well as I am today, I might so choose. The problem for me is going to be that once things start to fall apart, and they have at various points, they will fall apart rather quickly and I will get sick quickly, and I don't want to suffer. How do I suffer? I suffer in ways that are not easily seen sometimes, so my mornings are very difficult. I can end up over the toilet, vomiting considerably in the mornings for medication. And that is a symptom that I don't really enjoy. There's a part of me that just says, I'll take pain, I'll take all sorts of things, but being cold and being nauseous and vomiting, I can't tolerate. Yeah, I think it's different for everyone. But that would be my greatest fear, is getting to the end and feeling that constant nausea, sitting in bed, retching, and not being able to connect to the people around me who mean the most to me.
At 91 years old, is it fair to tube feed somebody? Do you want them to die with dignity and give them a choice in the matter? Had my mother been of sound mind, she'd had dementia in the last number of years, but had she been of sound mind and we had given her the choice before, she would have said, if I'm like that, I think I would just like an injection and just let me slip away and peacefully and say my goodbyes and go to sleep. But she was never given that option.
I think in Canada we're maybe not completely honest with ourselves on what happens in the real world. We do a lot. I think we do well with acute care, but when it comes to long-term care, palliative care, there's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you.
So ask me a question.
Okay. How do you plan to advocate for euthanasia and assisted suicide in Canada?
Well, I'm a liberal, which means that I believe in freedom of choice. I believe in adults' capacity to make their own decisions. But I also know that we have to make sure as a society we're protecting our most vulnerable and people who are in difficulties, as obviously people who are suffering from terminal illnesses or in great pain can be. And I think we, as a society, have reached a point where I think we can have a responsible debate about it and make sure that we are protecting people's right to have choice, while still making sure that we're not going too far or getting on a slippery slope. I'm excited about the kind of conversations that are being had. I'm excited about the activism that you guys are demonstrating right here to get people to think about something that is an extremely difficult and touchy subject for an awful lot of people, and the more we can have reasonable conversations about big issues like this, I think the better we as politicians end up being able to make sure we're taking the right decisions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So I'm a board member with Dying with Dignity, having joined at the last AGM last year. Previous to that, I was a member of Dying with Dignity and part of the newly formed group of the Advisory Council of Physicians for Dying with Dignity. We now have a committee of physicians that are willing to come forward. Small but growing daily. Physicians are very quickly starting to cave on this because they know the truth. They know what they're dealing with every day. They know they can't treat all palliative symptoms, and so it's starting to crumble in front of their eyes. Some don't want to admit it, and some are still tied to a very, and I don't mean this in a negative way, a very conservative religious agenda. I understand that, and that's every right of theirs, but don't push your conservative religious agenda on my life.
Dying is a process in life, just like birth, and people don't like to talk about death. People shy away from talking about death, but people deserve to die with dignity, and there was no dignity in this death. Well, I think Canada has to look at other countries that have been progressive, like Sweden, and they have to, and other states in the US, and be rational and logical and humanistic in their approach. They have to say, this is how we treat animals. When a dog has cancer, metastasized cancer, we put down animals. We put down animals, and yet we torture human beings. This is not right. It's just illogical, and it is cruel, and it lacks dignity and respect for human life.
Perfect. Thank you.
An individual where there is no hope, and that I think it would be the humane thing and the best thing, especially for the person, to help them close the circle of life.
Do you think that because baby boomers are aging, this is going to be an increasingly bigger social problem?
Yeah, I think, well, baby boomers have been used to, I'm a baby boomer. Baby boomers, we're used to getting our way. As you probably know, we took everything from you, and we've got it all now. And baby boomers, I think, are, and I'll just speak for myself, I think we tend to be more internally focused. It's our world. And so there's, in my mind, boomers have and want a lot of control.
Yes.
A lot of control.
I think it all depends on the age you are and I guess the severity of the illness. And if you can't take care of yourself, I guess it should be an option.
I believe that everybody should have the right to do whatever they want. Free will. Free will is what he calls it. So if I'm sick, I'm definitely going to take my own life. I don't want to live with terminally ill illnesses and diseases. I'd rather be able to have the option to do what I want.
Okay.
Basically, I feel that you shouldn't have the right to terminate yourself because, like in the Bible, it says you shouldn't commit suicide. It's like a big sin. And at the same time, if you think about it, when you come into the world, your mom is like 9 months pregnant and she goes through a lot of pain to bring you out, so it might be pain going out. And I think that should be, with God, God willing, like if he wants to take you, he's going to take you. And that sickness is not going to last forever because you don't live forever. So I don't believe in it.
Believe that, and I believe you can pray for people and they can get well. I prefer to pray for them first rather than them taking their life, because taking your own life is kind of a little risky. You didn't give yourself life, why would you want to take it?
In the end, there'll have to be a decision made, and I would like to make that decision myself. I think it's my life, I think it's my choice, and if I get to a point where it's not possible to control the symptoms, then I would rather be released from that and know that I've said my goodbyes and that I've wished all my relatives and friends the best before leaving.